Hello, everyone. How's it going? Long time no see, I would say. Hope you all are enjoying GHW so far. So, my name is UT, full name Utkarsh, but I prefer to go by UT because that's how everyone knows me in MLH if you don't know me yet. And what are we going to do today? We are here to learn how to deploy JavaScript applications on cloud. But before that, we are actually first going to create an application. Obvious, right? So we are going to create a very simple server using Express.js, and then we are going to build a very simple, very simple front end using React and Vite. And the reason why we are doing it is so that you get an idea of how you're going to structure your code in a way. And at the same time, some folks might not have their uh, laptop or environment setup. Okay, so we are also going to discuss that which cloud we are going to use. We are going to use multiple. Actually, we are going to see how you can use something called as platform as a service, uh, which options are there for platform as a service. And then we are also going to use something where you have your own VPS, okay, your virtual private server, where you have to install everything by yourself. Not AWS or GCP, frankly. For pass, I was thinking of using DigitalOcean, but we can check that out again tomorrow. Not something that I'm focusing on today. And for VPS, I haven't found a VPS which would be free, which is not AWS or GCP. Uh, So I'm like kind of looking into it, any VPS which would be free. But for anything which is a pass, I have found multiple free options. So we'll explore all those free options tomorrow. Okay. So I have two sessions tomorrow as well, where we are going to explore all these things. Uh, Today we are going to just build a simple Express.js backend and a simple React frontend. Can I give a demo? Unfortunately not. We are going to build something called as let's say a book library, where you have very simple CRUD operations of creating a new book, adding it to Replit database. Replit provides its own database, so we are going to add a book in a Replit database. Then we are going to, of course, query all the books, query individual books, delete a book, update a book, and delete the whole database. So these are some APIs that we are going to build. Once that is done, we will take a short break and then we'll come back and build a very simple front end using Vite. Uh, and we'll do all of this on Replit because you don't have to set up your environment. But tomorrow, like towards the end of today's session, actually, I will tell you what you need to do to set up a local development environment. Because tomorrow, once we start working tomorrow, we are going to run everything locally first. Once that is done, we are then going to start deploying it on different platforms. Probably one of the platforms that I have in mind is called Railway. So we are going to deploy on Railway. Then we are also going to see how we can deploy on DigitalOcean, depending on which platforms are free. Okay. I really don't want you all to spend money. Uh, and then for the VPS server, where we can kind of get some credits, I'm still searching for one. If you have any suggestions for VPS servers which are free, please do let me know. Other than that, if not, then maybe I can show it to you on how to do on Linode or fly.io, one of those things. And you can just watch how to do the whole process. And that's it. You don't have to follow along tomorrow. But today, I would prefer if you all followed along. So, well, that's about today's session. Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi. I have only gone over the overview of what we are going to do today, which is mostly coding and building very simple backend and front end. Okay. Now, if you haven't registered for this session, may I kindly request you all to please do that. I have sent the link in the chat. Okay, so please do register for this session. I would really appreciate it. Secondly, if you have not worked or haven't been a part of any of my previous sessions, then this is for you. Please create an account on Replit because it helps not set up the local environment and not face any issues on Windows versus Mac versus any Linux machines. Uh, we are all on a similar environment and it is very easy to debug. Also, it's easy for me to share code with everyone then. So that is why I would prefer that you all build it on Replit for the time being. Once we have done that, tomorrow we can focus on creating a local environment and putting the same code locally, trying to run it locally, and then deploying it. Okay, cool. So please register and please create an account on Replit and welcome, actually. Hope you enjoy your stay in this session. Uh, okay, without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, now when I opened Replit today, I found that they have limited the starter plan and you can now only have 3 repels. So unfortunately, I'll have to go back and delete all the repels that I had from over 2 years ago. Like if you remember our journey of all the GHWs that I have taken, which apparently is a lot because I was like 2 years. I've been doing this for 2 years. That is a lot. So I have to delete all my previous repels. I can always create a new account, which is fine, I feel, but I don't really need all these because, well, you all have learned, whoever was part of my previous sessions, they have learned. And I kind of have nearly all of this code locally with me, which at some point I should push to GitHub. Uh, but for the time being, I have all of this, so I'm going to, yeah, delete all these code bases. Wow, 22 repels. 22 out of 3. So, yeah, I would need to delete it. Others, you can feel free to create a new account and create a new Replit account, and then you have 3 repels again. Or you can always pay for this. Uh, suppose it's supposedly not very costly, around $10, I think. That's what it said when I opened it for the first time, and I can't find it here. But okay, anyways, let's move on. So what are we going to create first? As I said, we are first going to create a Node.js server. So you can click on the create REPL and we can find a template of Node.js. And there's a lot of them, but I'm going to go with the favorite Node.js. Going to give it a title of book library backend. And that's it. I'm just going to click on create REPL. And if at any point you all miss any part of code, you can actually find it on this link, which I have now shared in the chat on my Replit link. And I'll keep sharing it, of course, during the whole session. So at any point you fall behind in coding this whole thing, please let me know and I can share the link to this. I don't really need the AI, so I'm going to switch off that one. I remember you could do some Yeah. So I'm going to remove that. I think it still will show you stuff, but that's okay. We can ignore it. And yeah, let's move on. Now I'm going to wait for a couple of seconds. Let everyone be on this part of your coding journey slash coding section where you have some simple front end, not simple front end, this whole backend, empty backend open. Also, let me test one thing. What's with the music not playing? Yep, that's good. Good enough. You're still on Ubuntu. I am not. I'm sorry. I'm confused here. Uh, okay. Also, let me go away from the screen so you can focus solely on the screen. And oh, my OS is Mac OS. I am not on Ubuntu, and this is Replit. Okay, no worries. Uh, we are actually going to slowly start coding. So by the time your REPL loads, we'll not be very far ahead, frankly. And okay, let's start building things. And what are we going to build first? So we are going to build a very simple backend, which I keep saying again and again. And what would it look like? So we'll have a single page backend, I can say, because it has like 4 or 5 API routes or API routes or routes, depends on how people pronounce it. And one of them would be getting all the books. One of them would be getting a single book, then creating a book, then updating a book, deleting a book, and deleting the whole database. Now, this database thing that I keep talking about, you can actually find it in the tools. So, if on your left hand side you open the tools section, you'll find there is a free. There's a free, easy to use database from Replit, which is like supposed to be very nice. Okay, yeah. Going back. Replit has a free database, free, easy to use key value store, and it is very simple thing. And we are going to use this database for the time being for our whole uh, database part of our backend. And later on, we will kind of move to Postgres. Uh, like depending on wherever we deploy our application, some of them might support Postgres, some of them might support MySQL. I haven't tried any of those out yet, so I can't say for sure. But for the time being, at least while we are on Replit, we are going to use this free database that they give. Okay, so now moving on, let's start writing some code. And the first line that we are going to write is using Express. Okay, so what is Express? So in Node.js, Express is a library, and Node in itself is very bulky. It gives you a ton of features, but most of the times you don't really require all of those features. So Express is a comparatively lightweight uh, alternative to Node.js functionalities. And again, it's mainly server for server, of course, and it gives you some very easy to use APIs which you can implement, and very intuitive as such, very understandable. So that is what we are going to use for now. So I have said that const express equals require express. This is where we tell it to download the express library, and we can find all about that on expressjs.com. Yeah, this one, where they give you a very simple starter code of how you should create an express application. And that's what we are going to do. Are we going app in this session in are we deploying app in this session in Replit? Actually, no. We are not going to deploy anything today, unfortunately. We will do that tomorrow, but first we need to create something to deploy, which is what we are focusing on in this session today. We are going to create something today which we can deploy tomorrow. Okay, so coming back, there's simple starter code, and yeah, very precisely put that you have multiple methods available in Node.js, and Replit, sorry, not Replit, Express is kind of a lightweight alternative, which gives you everything that Node.js gives you, but with intuitive APIs, and also, again, not all the functionalities. Okay, another question, which already see has been answered. So, is Replit a virtual IDE? Yes. Is it a platform as a service? Yes. You can also say it's a IDE as a service. Little joke. I don't think there's something like IDE as a service, but yeah, you get the platform. Uh, they maintain it, and you can use it. I think GitHub also had something very similar come up. Uh, I don't remember the name, but they also provide platform as a service. What is it called? I'm trying to search what is the GitHub's version called, and also trying to log into my GitHub because, well, I have been. Oh yeah, code spaces. Yeah, true. But still, let me log into GitHub because it will be required. If not today, then tomorrow. Yep, GitHub Code Spaces, which is the GitHub's version of having a platform as a service, especially specifically for coding. Okay, so we also should actually install this. So I'm going to run this command in the shell. Okay, so in the shell, you have to run this particular command to install Express. Replit is nice. It kind of understands if you use a library without installing it. When you run this whole thing for the first time, it will install it for you. But from tomorrow's perspective, I would prefer to install everything one by one so that we have a very nicely laid out package JSON which we are going to use tomorrow, uh, to run this whole thing locally so that we can push from local, do the whole CI CD pipeline stuff, then deploy it somewhere. Okay, so on every push or something, like every git push, it should trigger the CI CD pipeline and deploy it. uh, Time, if we have time, we'll also look into how to do monitoring using Prometheus and Grafana, uh, if we get a virtual private server. Okay, that there's a big condition there. If we all get a VPS, then we'll also do the whole Prometheus and Grafana for monitoring your application. If we don't, that's okay, I will still show it to you at my own expense. Uh, okay, so const express equals to require express, and then they have again very simple guide right there, where you do const app equals to express, you specify a port, you make a get request, and when you kind of listen on it, you can console log something, and that's it. So let's do that. So I'm going to say const app equals to express. Okay, this basically takes all the inbuilt functions that Express has and puts it on this particular variable that we have created. And then we can write a very simple API. So we can go like app.get, and the route would be the slash route or the home route. And normally you would have a request handler which takes into parameter, which has two variables or parameters, which is a rec and rec comma res, where rec is request and the res is response. And what we can do, like the request part, we are not actually concerned with that. So I could either console log that, or you could also do something like an underscore variable, where this tells JavaScript that it's okay that this variable is not used, but I still want it there. Okay, kind of like a placeholder. So that's our request. And for our response, we can go like res dot, I think you could do status, or they are just doing send. But you could do something like res dot status, which tells it what is the status code, which in this case would be 200, and the response would be to send hello GHW. Okay, you can format this whole file from here, click on run. As you can see, it actually does the whole npm install, which is really nice. And we did this, but nothing's happening because we forgot to do the last part where we need to tell it to listen on a particular port. So let's define a port as well. So I am going to define the port as, we can do actually uh, from tomorrow's perspective, const port equals to process dot env dot port or 3000. So I'm saying that if we have environment variables, then on like we can use the node.js process on that, on the environment variable, we can access this property of port, which if exists would be used for this particular variable port. But if it that does not exist, then by default use the port 3000. Okay, that's what this line kind of means. And now we need to listen on this port. Okay. And the other day, I found a very nice Insta reel actually about understanding this whole listening on a port. Like, what does that mean? So I will tell you what I heard uh, in on the reel, on the Insta reel. So this person was explaining what is listening on a port, and that is like let's say there's this person, we'll call the person Bob, and and Bob is in his room with his window open, and there's this another person, uh, Alice. Alice comes from somewhere and she stands down his building and she starts shouting, "Hey, Bob." And since the window is open, anyone who comes there and shouts Bob's name, Bob will come out and see what's happening. So the person could be anyone. The window open is like listening on a port saying that, hey, this particular window is open. Anything that you do on this particular window, I will come out and listen. Okay. I will come out and do XYZ stuff, like whatever has been defined. So, yeah, that was something like really interesting and really intuitive to understand. Excuse me. And so we are going to do uh, console log here, and what are we going to do is just print a message saying server running on port, whichever port it is running on. So the variable that we have defined right here is what I'm going to use right here, and that's it. I think that should be it. Let's start this. And as you can see, the request that we had plotted, that is a lot. uh, okay, so the rec is very big, so I can just put like rec dot path, like plot that. Or actually, let me remove it. So I'm going to remove this whole thing, format this, and start it again. You can also clear the history from here. So server running on port 3000, which is coming right from here. And app.get forward slash is basically listening for any request on the port 3000. It found the request as the slash request. Okay. Should I have plotted it? Let me see. So rec.path. So someone sent a request on the slash route. The server was listening on that route. Okay. And when the server was listening on that route and they found that a request is coming on slash route, they went this like the Node.js code or the Express.js code went through it, and it found that, oh, there is a response for if the request is on the slash route, on the forward slash route, and the response is this. So the server sends that particular response. Okay. So if let's say this route is slash hello, okay, and also since we are not using nodemon, we'll need to stop and restart server again and again. Tomorrow when we do it locally, we can use something called nodemon, which restarts the server automatically. So now the server is listening on port 3000, and by default the route that it checks for is slash, and it says cannot get slash because it found a request of slash on this port, but there was nothing to return. So but if we change that to slash hello, then it goes through your code, or the server knows that, oh, when someone sends a request on slash hello, on forward slash hello, this is what I need to return. And that's what it does. And as you can see, this is the path that we are plotting. And that is on slash hello. This is the response that we get right here. Okay. So that is the idea of listening on a port. Oh, oops, too many questions. Uh, Wait, I'll go one by one. Uh, yes, I guess so, but it's not that much. Probably like there are so many things which are like $3, $5, so that's okay. And what is get used for? So the get is used for getting something. Okay. Uh, you can kind of divide your whole CRUD operations, which we keep saying CRUD, is The first one is create. Okay, and the create in a REST API, you normally do a post request. So there are these RESTful methods. I can send you an article, a nice article about what is RESTful API. Yeah. So you can find everything about what is REST API, what is RESTful API. Okay. What are the REST methods? But normally, to give you a very quick overview, when you want to create something, then you use the post method of REST. When you want to read something, you use the get method. When you want to update something, and people are kind of divided on this, but I think using put is preferable. uh, so read, update, and finally for deleting anything, for delete you use the delete method. Okay, so these are a few methods which have their own uh, description. You can think of it as a common API which has been implemented across multiple servers, and the styling of it remains kind of same or similar. So for a get method, uh, Express has this API called as .get, where it first listens to where you are, like where should the request come to. So if the request is coming on slash hello, that is the path. Okay, and based on whatever, if the request is on this particular path and on this particular port, it needs to send this as a response. So that is your reading the data. Okay, that's just a simple read where it is reading the request on slash hello and responding with this. Then you have your create and update, which we will come to later. Uh, no, we will not. Uh, uh, Rest or status would be actually required. That is why I started with that. I can also send a nice article about uh, status codes, HTTP response status codes. So I think that would be nicer to understand. So normally, what do these response codes mean? And these response codes are actually present everywhere. Every time you make any request or anything, these response codes are present. So if I do this, if I like reload the whole page, you can see that there is this a request was sent, and the request method was a get request. Let me like zoom in to this. So when you load this page, a request was sent to this particular URL or this particular endpoint. The request method was get request, and the status code was 200 OK. Okay, because it was successful. At the same time, let me see if any request was sent which was not successful and whose status code can be seen actually. Apparently not. Most of the requests were successful, and anything that wasn't was actually blocked request. But that is the so for any successful response, you use the status codes between 200 to 299, depending on what it is. So like 200 OK when the request has succeeded, 201 created when the request has succeeded and a new resource was created. So this is kind of a guidance, you can always return 404, but then no one will like you because they will be like, wait, what are you doing? Why are you like not returning 200 if the request was successful? So this is kind of a guidance, and this indicates whether the request has been completed, not completed, what happened. Now, as you saw that the status one, it is 200 okay. Now, if I reload this whole thing, the status is now 304 not modified. Why? Because if you remember my RESTful cheat sheet, HTTP, the RESTful APIs are supposed to be cacheable. Okay, they support caching. So the browser actually, in this case Chrome, has cached the response. Okay, the response is something like this. The browser has actually cached this response. So when I reload the page again, what it did was it saw that, oh, the request is going to the same request URL, and the request method is also get. So ideally the response will be the same. So let me not fetch it from the server. Let me not go to MDN's server and fetch it. I will show the same page again, and the status code will change because it's 304 not modified. Okay, nothing has changed. You have not asked the browser to fetch it again. So if you do empty cache and hard reload, that's when it needs to go back and fetch it again. But if you just do a simple reload, it's not modified. So that is the idea of getting a request and getting like status code and the request type. Now you could have, if you want to, I don't know if it's possible here. Hmm, okay, maybe once we write our own post request, we'll start with that. So that was a very simple get request. Okay, getting a request. And let me go back and check. I like that people are interacting and asking questions, which is really nice. Yeah, unfortunately not going to deploy today. Yes, we are first going to create something and then we can deploy. We can also use dash dash watch for changes. Let me try. I don't know. So if we use that, then we cannot use the run. I think we will need to go into package JSON. And where is the start script? No idea where it is. We'll need to create one. We can call it dev, and that should basically run node index.js. And here we can come and go like npm run dev dash dash watch. Oh, it expects a comma here. Excuse me. Server running on this port. And if I change slash hello to slash, I don't think this will not reload. But we can install something called as nodemon. So like I changed this slash hello to slash, and I would have expected the server to restart, but that did not. So let's install a very nice library called as npm nodemon. So nodemon is actually for uh, restarting the server anytime you make a change. So I'm going to copy this particular line and we will install it on Replit. So let's go to our book library, go to shell, and I'm going to write it here. So npm install slash dash dash save dev nodemon. So now if you go to your package JSON, there would be dev dependencies nodemon. And what we can do on dev here is say nodemon space index.js. The index.js is the file that we want to run. Okay. So now if I do npm run dev, that should start the server, and the server is running on port 3000. That is nice. And if I make a change, like the slash changes to slash hello, it updates the server. Okay, it's restarting due to changes, and it updates it. Okay, so that's a nice thing about nodemon, and I am going to keep this as slash, and we will have hello GHW. Now let me go over to the other questions in the chat. uh, but we only get hello and not the console log reg. So the console log red dot path, as the name suggests, it's on the console. This is our console, and that is a browser. So the browser will not show the console log part. If I open it in a new tab, it's, oh, there is a 404 request. It could not find the fav icon here. Uh, so this is the browser console, and this particular console is your server console, which is right here. So the browser will not show the server console logs. Also, let me remove this because it keeps plotting slash slash slash. So really don't need this. And make this an underscore variable, saying that this variable exists, but don't give me warnings or errors. Uh, okay, so if your server is not showing hello, can does it show anything on the forward slash? If I change this to hi GHW, this should refresh and reload. Yep. Okay, perfect. So nope, nothing interesting. Can you like take this particular replit that I have, copy paste the exact code? Also ensure that you have express installed. Okay, also add this dev. You can actually kind of take this whole thing, you can copy paste this package JSON as well, then go over to your shell. Okay, not the console, the shell, and do npm run dev. Dev is this particular script. So please ensure that you have exactly this thing, and yeah, that should kind of solve the problem. Okay, cool. Okay, that's sorted. And yeah, 404 kind of infamous, true. uh, but there are a lot of more. Okay, like not many people are aware of all the http response codes, myself included. I have sometimes no idea what is this. Most probably like internal server error, yes. 502 bad gateway, we see that from time to time. Service unavailable, yeah. This, yes. I have never seen, at least, or never used 505, 506. uh Definitely not 511. Like I haven't. Okay, someone might have, but I haven't. Unavailable for legal reasons, don't really don't know if anywhere I've seen that. Too many requests, yes, I have. And there is a very famous one which is called as I am a teapot. Okay, so you can actually return a response called as I am a teapot 418. And that was actually started as a joke, if I remember. Like some people on April Fool's Day were like, let's create a new status code. Let's call it 418, which is I am a teapot. And instead of returning 503, which means service not available or service unavailable, I will return I am a teapot. So really, really funny there. Okay, coming back. So we have till now just created one route of showing hello GHW. But once you get this, that is nearly all the things that you need to know in a server. Okay, in a server, it's not very difficult. All you need is Express or any other server libraries for that matter, and the request, the response. That's it. That's all you need. So now let's start creating the next bits, which is adding the whole database functionality. Okay. So for adding the database functionality, if you go on the left hand side of your replit and you go to database key value, this is the free, easy to use database from Replit. It has 50 megabytes of storage, which is good enough and huge enough, at least for our application. And how to use this database. So you import the database as such, then you create a new database or instantiate it as such. Then you can set a key to a value by doing the db.set. Then you can get a keys value by doing db.get. So this is for getting from the database. Okay. And this library that it suggests to install, we can actually find it here. So if I go over to, nope, not this one, uh this one, second one, at the rate replit slash database, last published 5 months ago. uh this is the library that we need to install. So I'm going to copy this command and I'm going to paste it in my book library. I have to stop the server for the time being so that I can run this. And I'm installing this particular library. Let me also share that in the chat. And we have so many spammers today. I am sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, I hope you all have installed this npm I at the rate replit slash database. And this is how we are going to use it. Import database as such. So I'm just going to copy paste that line, but all I'm doing, similar way to express, const database equals to require all the functions, the top level functions, as it is said, from at the replits, at the rate replit, or at replit slash database, the library that we installed. And let me clear my shell and let's run npm run dev so that nodemon gets started again. uh, so const database, the next bit is to create a new database. You do something very similar to what we did here. We are instantiating a new database. So I'm going to do it after we define the whole port. So const db equals to new database. So I'm going to write that. So const db equals to new database. Now this database, it can also take the db URL. So when we run this whole project locally, we will need to define what is the database URL. Okay, because when it is running inside Replit, it knows the database URL. When we run it locally, it will not know the database URL. So you can actually get the database URL from this environment variable called as replit underscore db underscore URL. So the same way we do process.env.port, you could do something like console.log process.env.replit underscore db underscore url. I will not add L because then it will print out the URL to my database and someone will try to bombard it. I don't want that. But you can do like just need to add a L here, okay, without the apostrophe of without the inverted commas, of course, and that will print out the database URL. Not going to do it right now. Formatting it, and as you can see the app had crashed but then it restarted, okay, which is really nice thing about nodemon. It restarts your application anytime it crashes or anything changes. So that is the way we will create a new database. And now we will get back to uh, oh, we'll also add something called as a middleware, where we will say that if the request is coming as a JSON in the JSON format, this is a middleware to parse JSON bodies. Uh, where is it used? I would say you can think of it as a syntax thing, but most of the times, all the anything that comes from any request will be in the format of JSON. So this helps parse that. Maybe we'll get a better understanding of it when we start writing a post request. Okay. For now, you can ignore it. You can just add it as such, and don't worry about it too much. Okay, so a few enters here. Let's start writing. The first one would be to actually create a new book, right? So I am going to do app.post and I will say slash API slash books. Okay. Now slash API slash books, you know what this means? This means that any request that happens on this particular route, okay, then it needs to do something. What does it need to do? So rec comma res, excuse me. Uh, so the first thing that we actually want to do is add the what is the request here, like show the request that has happened. So I am going to just do console.log rec dot path. Okay, let me format this. You can open your web view in a new tab by clicking on this open in new tab button. For some reason it thinks this is Arabic. It's not. Now if I go to slash API slash books, it should console log it there, right? So slash API slash books, and nothing happened. Why? And the error is very weird. It says cannot get slash API slash books, but it's a post request. So that's our new understanding, that a browser only sends a get request normally. So whenever you go to a particular URL, you are getting that URL. Okay. This is all a get request. So currently, when we go to this particular URL is coming from Replit, and slash API slash books is coming as something that we have added. It is trying to make a get request. The app is listening on port 3000, and it listened and it was like, oh, the get request on slash API slash books. This is just a slash, so no. This is a post, so no, and there's no get request. So that is why we get the error. So how do we make a post request? So we can do, also let me add something like post colon. So that ways you will know that a post request has been made. And yeah, how do we get to make a post request? So normally you would use a API testing uh, app like Postman, but there is a online version which is very similar and free to use, does not require you to create an account. It's called hopscotch.io. And there's another question here. Which DB are we using here? So we are using the database that Replit provides for free. It's a in-memory database, very similar to Redis, I would say, uh, for like a free and easy to use key value store, which is like in-memory key value pairs kind of thing. And that this is the database that we are using. So Replit's own provided freely available database. Okay, and yeah, so if you go on to hopscotch.io, that gives you a interface where you can test your API, and we are going to test our API here. Okay, so let's start with first a simple get request. So where should we make a get request? The URL or the endpoint is this thing. We'll go to hopscotch, and here we will put this request. We'll click on send, and it says there's an error. Okay, it cannot intercept the application. If I add proxy, if I choose the proxy option, then try, yes, you will need to kind of choose that proxy option. And as you can see, a simple get request returned me this response: hi GHW. Now I'm going to create a new tab or a new request. The request type will change to a post request. Also, you can see these are the different kinds of request: get, post, put, delete. There's also patch and head and options and everything. But post request, post request on this particular URL. That this particular URL is this whole slash API slash box. Click on send, and the post request keeps on loading because we never returned anything. We did not return a response, but you can see that the post request has been successfully made. So I can actually send a response saying status of 201 dot send post created. Okay, something like that. Now if I go to hopscotch, click on this send again, you can see this is the status 201 created, which is coming from here 201. And the post created is the response body, which is coming from this part. Okay, so how interesting is that? It's simply going to do a get request and a post request. But this is not actually what we want to create. We want to, whenever someone makes a request, we want to actually add the data from that request into our database. So let's do that. Let's focus on creating the whole database aspect and putting the data in the database. Okay, so what we could do is we can say that let's create a variable, let's call it const book, and that is equal to an object where the first thing would be an ID. And what is my ID going to be? My ID is going to be 1. Okay, the title of the book, or actually sorry, my bad, the ID is going to be whatever ID the user gives us. So request dot id, okay, is request.params.id, I think, or request.body.id. I think it would be body.id. Request.body.id. The title would be request.body.id. dot title, and the author would be request dot body dot author. Okay, and in response, let's send a response. Let's show it to you what exactly is coming here. So res dot send 201 dot, oh sorry, res dot status 201 dot send this particular book variable that we have created. Okay, also let me console dot log the request dot body to show you what is coming here. So we have made a few changes. We have created a variable book, and there is this whole thing of ID, title, author, and this is what we are sending back. Let's go to Hopscotch, click on this send, and it says 201 created, but with empty. What happened here? The request.body was empty. So we need to provide it a body. And if you go to Hopscotch, you see there's a parameters and there's a body. Now our body type would be actually application slash JSON. Okay. And we will say ID colon 1 comma author, or let's say book title first, right? So title colon uh, Sherlock Holmes, and author colon Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Also, let me increase the font size, window size here. And you can click on this prettify, which prettifies it. And there's a spelling mistake here, author. And now if I click on send, this is my response body. And if I go here, you can see the request.body. It has this ID, title, and author. And that is what we are actually doing here. Okay, we are saying that from the request.body, get the ID and map the value to this particular variable called as ID. From the request.body.title, get the value and map it to title here. Same for author. So take the value from here and map it here. Now, if I pass an extra value, like let's say name as an extra value, and let's say GHW is the thing, and I click on send, my request body will have that. Okay, my request body can get hundreds of key value pairs, but we are only interested in the ones that we want to put in the database. So that is why I will keep it like this is what it's doing. It's saying that only take the values which are if ID, title, and author, and map it here. What if someone does not give a value? So if someone does not give an ID, only gives title, author, and name, so then only title and author will be returned, right? Because, well, ID is missing. Okay, so I hope you understood what is exactly happening with our request.body and what are we doing there. And I think I am going too slow. So let me kind of speed it up. Now the ID, I don't want the user to return it because, well, users will not know how many books are there in my database, right? They will only go like one, then someone will go like 100, someone will go like one again. I want ID to be unique and auto-generated. So let me add a function to generate ID. And you could do anything that you want, but I am going to do a very simple thing. I'm going to call const get next ID and that would be a asynchronous request. What is an asynchronous request? It means that the response from this request will take some time. Okay, it may take like 1 second, it may take 10 seconds. So this is a asynchronous request, uh, and you have to wait for that. So what are we going to wait on? uh, so we are actually going to wait on the db.list. Okay, so you can see this method of db.list somewhere here, I remember. Yeah, you can do db.list. So, and this is a asynchronous request because it can take time to load the database. So that is why we need to say that await or wait for this database to load and return a value from db.list. Once we have that value, we are going to do something like const keys equals to uh, let me do console.log of keys object here to show you what it looks like. But to actually show that, we first need to call this function somewhere. Okay, get next id. I'm going to call it right here. So when this whole thing reloads, as you can see, this is what exists in db.list. There's a OK colon true, which comes from default, and there is a value which is an empty array. Okay, so if you have a array, you can kind of loop over it or map over it, as you can say. So I'm going to say const keys equals to keys object dot value. The dot value means the value key. Okay, so dot value, and if it exists, then that's good. Or you can do like kind of or empty, but let's ignore that. So keys object dot value dot map, and on the map I am actually going to say that it should filter out the numbers key such that it's do I really need to do this? uh, Not as nan, I can say key. So this is kind of, I know, kind of looks very weird, but once we use it, you will get an idea. So keys dot length, if it is greater than 0, then we will go like string of math dot max uh, over the keys plus 1, or we can go like the first key is 1. Okay, so, and the string would be a capital S actually. Yep. So what are we doing? So we are saying get the next ID, where uh, first we will wait for the database to load. Once the database has loaded, then we are saying that get the value of that particular object, the dot value, if that exists. So keys object dot value says that if the value exists, or you can say if there is an empty, then map over it, get all the keys, and one particular key is what we are interested. We are saying that inside the object, inside the array, should be multiple objects. It's not very easy to explain it this way. So when we use it, when we start using it, that's when you will get an idea of what is exactly happening. uh, okay, let's use it. So I can say that step 1, I want to call the get next id. Okay, once you call that, then once that happens, then for the id, okay, and just for the id, we will say this whole const book thing. And here the ID would be basically this ID here. Okay, the title would still remain the same, the body would still remain the same, and this is okay. Now once we have this, so what have we done? We said that call the get next ID. Once you have that, whatever it returns, give it to the variable called as ID, and then pass it to our this const book thing that we created, where the ID would be the ID that is coming from this get next ID. uh, you can call it like my ID, and can pass it like this makes it easy to understand that this is coming from here. Okay, so pass it here, and then once this is done, then you need to do a return db.set. Why db.set? Because to set a value, to set a key to a value, you need to call the db.set method. So db.set, and one would be the ID, or you can say the my ID here, my ID comma book dot then. Again, I'm doing a dot then. Once that is done, then let's do a console dot log of uh, what could be console log? We can console log this my ID comma book. Okay, so let's console log that my ID comma book, and let's return the rest dot status of 201, which means that there's data that is created, and you could do like dot json dot send the book. Okay, we close this thing. Then we also need to close another set of things. Okay, we don't need these rest dot status here, and let me format this. I am missing one thing, which is if this request fails, if let's say the dot id is not created, then we can do something called as catching the error. So catch the error, and once you catch the error, you can say rest dot status, send a code of 500 saying there is an internal server error, I think that was it, and dot send, and I can say I can send the error as such. So I'll go like dot error, and error saving the book. So if for any reason the request fails, then we need to send this particular error to the user. Let's go here and let's try to test this. So if I do this, it creates an ID one. The title and the author are coming from here, and there is the name GHW, which is not really needed. Now, if I go Sherlock Holmes 2, and instead of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, I do Arthur Conan Doyle, and I send that, then the ID gets auto updated to 2, and the title and the author are the new ones that we added. So now, if you go here to our this whole get next ID thing, I think you kind of now get an idea what's happening. So inside my database, there were two objects. Okay, and that is what we are checking, how many objects are existing, and if there are two, then increment the number by 1, so the next ID would be 3. But if the database is empty by default, then it's supposed to be 1. It should start from 1. Okay, as you can see, there are 2 keys right now in the database. So that gives you an idea of what is exactly happening here. We are kind of adding data to our database, and this function is used to create the next id, generate the next id. And we have actually successfully created a post request, right, of adding data to database, like very simply, by just doing this whole thing of app.post. So once we add all the data, the next bit should be getting all the data. So we will next write a get request to get all the books. Okay. We'll write a get request to get all the books. We'll write a get request to get a single book. Then what else? Also, let me show you what does our database look like. So if I do a console.log here, and I go like my database colon keys object. Okay, this is necessary because we will actually uh, need to understand it for the next bit. So if I go over to my post request and I go like this is, and then there were none by Agatha Christie, and I do the send this request, the ID gets updated to 3. There's title, there's author, but the way it is being stored in the database, which is apparently not this, you could do keys object dot value, I think. If I just do await db, I am not too sure what's going to happen. uh Let me send this request again. Okay. Oops, it also plots my db url, which I definitely did not want. Okay, I don't think I'll be able to plot it as such. But okay, going back, we have 4 things in the database, which you can actually see from here. 4 keys in the database, and that's it. Let's take a quick break. After we come from the break, we can write our whole get request. Okay, the remaining get request, which is getting all the books, getting a single book. Uh, Other than that, we also need to write a put request. Actually, not needed. We can write a delete request and a delete database. Okay, so get all books, get a single book. Actually, we can skip this get a single book as well. So get all books, delete a book, delete a database. These are 3 more requests that we need to write, and then we will start the front end. We'll start writing the front end code. Okay. Uh, Yeah, and for the time being, let's take a quick 5-minute break. And once we come from the break, we can complete all these things that we just discussed about. Okay, uh, have some water. If we are not able to complete it today, that's okay. I would prefer to complete it today though, but if not, that's okay. We can, of course, continue it tomorrow. So, quick 5-minute break, and then we'll be back. Hello, hello, hello. I'm back. And hope you all had a quick break, quick, nice break. Uh, Reducing the volume a bit. And okay, do we need to submit this? Actually, no. You are not. So, no, you don't have to submit it. Uh, this is just for your learning. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Hi there. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Let's move on actually for the next bits. So, the next bit would be we have written a post request. We saw the post request in action. The next bit would be to add a get request, uh, get all books, get a single book, delete book by ID, and delete a database. Let's see, whatever we are able to complete before the next session, we'll do all of that. uh, okay, so let me move away and you can. Okay, ignore me, let's continue. So app dot post we have written, let's write app dot get, and the request, if it's coming from a slash api slash books. Okay, now if you see, the post request was also on the same endpoint, the get request is also on the same endpoint, but the request type is different. Okay, and that is the key. So if you remember, we were discussing that, a request is coming from on slash api slash books, but it's a get request. So that is why our server did not respond with this whole thing when it's just a get request. So like, oops, nodemon crashed. uh, because there's half empty code, but you get the idea what I'm trying to say, right? The request was previously not a get request, but now we are going to write a get request. Okay, sorry, have to clear the chats now and again. Too many bots, too many spams. uh Sorry, going back. Yeah, let's write our get request. So to get all the books, what we need to do is we will call the db.list, which is as they suggest. So list all keys, you do db.list.then and then the keys. Okay, but in our case, we don't want just the keys, we want too many things. So I'm going to do like db.list.then, and then I can do something like keys obj, keys object, and then I can say that const keys equals to keys object, or it's empty. Okay, and then we will do a return promise dot all keys dot map, where keys is here, and keys dot map, what are we mapping on? We are mapping on an individual part of it, which is like db dot get the particular key. Oh, This is supposed to have another bracket, and this is supposed to close here then. So this should return us all the keys. The promise.all should return us all the keys. Once this promise is successful, we will do a dot then on that promise and go like, okay, now let's respond with rest dot status of 200 and then just send the books. Okay, so once that happens, that's nice. But if there is any error, so let me format this. And if there is any error, so we can do like dot catch any error, and we can go like res dot status of 500 and dot send, and I want to send my error like the whole error that's returned, the error object or the error string, and error retrieving TRIEVING. Yeah, wow, that was such a spelling test. So error retrieving books. Okay, cool. Request is not being used because we are not doing anything with the request as such. Anytime a request is received here, which comes from because of this, we are sending this response and this response. Okay, so if I go here and I reload this, okay, type error. Keys.map is not a function. So this error returns me the error saying that keys.map is not a function. Why so? Uh, so for that, let me actually console log the keys object. So console.log the keys obj. I think that was okay. So the keys object actually is something like okay, true, and value is 1, 2, 3, 4. Why is it just 1, 2, 3, 4? Where is my title and ID and everything? Okay, I think I'll have to fix our post request. But in general, the data exists on this dot value. So we will need to do dot value here or empty. Okay, perfect. So now if I reload this, oh yeah, it is there. Pretty printing it. And I can actually go on to hopscotch. And you remember hopscotch, you click on the plus, it's a get request on this particular endpoint, where the first part is actually where the replit is running, and this is the last part, the slash API slash books is our API endpoint, and that returns a 200 OK with this particular object array of objects where there is object inside object. Okay, this is going to be very weird when we have to delete something, but for the time being, ID1, ID2, ID3, ID4. Nice. So we have 4 things in our database and different IDs. IDs are unique, and yeah, that is our database. Uh, so we have done 2 things. We have done the getting of all the books, the posting of like basically adding or creating is done. So create is done, read is done. Update and delete are 2 next things that we need to focus on. So for updating anything, for updating a resource, you use the put. Now, remember I was telling you that there's this whole discussion about put versus patch. So you can find a very nice Stack Overflow discussion about when should you use a put request, when to use a patch request. For now, we are going to use every time I try to write a request, it goes like rec frame something something. So rec and res. So db dot get. Now, what is this colon ID? So this basically means that someone requests on the endpoint of slash API slash books slash one. Okay, so the ID, the colon ID can be replaced with anything. So slash one, slash two, slash echo, slash hello. Like you can replace the colon ID with anything. But what we need to do is we need to go into our database and we need to basically check that whatever the user is passing, does that exist? So for the time being, let me actually not plot, console log this. So console.log the ID, and that is this. And we can also res dot, if you don't add a status code, what happens? You can just do res dot send. Okay, I'm not adding a status code, and I'm sending this ID. Let's go to hopscotch, and I'm going to copy this. This needs to change to a put request, and this thing slash books slash hello. If I do that, it returns me hello. If I do one, it will return me one. So whatever you put here is what uh, is the value of the rec.params.id. Okay, so whatever you put here is what the value of rec.params.id is. So basically, you can also put colon ID, then the value is colon ID, right? But if you don't do that, if you just put something like a value or a variable, I was going to say, sorry, a value, the colon ID becomes that particular value. So I hope you understand that part. And let me remove everything that I've written and write db.get rec.params.id. So if we find this, then so dot then we can go like book object. You can think of object as key value pairs, which is what the database is storing it as. Okay, key value pairs. So that is why I keep calling everything as object. So book object dot value. Okay, we need the value. We need to access the nested value. So then now we can write a condition. So if not a book, if not book, basically if there is this value is empty or does not exist, or there's nothing here. If not book, then return res dot status of 404 dot send book not found. Okay, let me format this. So if at this point, if we go to our put request and I go like make a request here, it should return me status 404 not found, and book not found is the response body, which is nice, right? So if not a book, like if not a book, if basically if the book is not found, return this. But if the book is found, so now we can go like 2 lines below and we can go like, well, if the book is found, then what do we need to do? So we can go like book has a title, and we are writing a put request, right? So if we are writing a put request, should I have written a single getting? Okay. Okay, ignore me. Sorry, I am running here and there, but I'm going to comment this and let's get a single book first. Let's see when we try to get a single book, what happens. So app.get slash API slash books slash colon ID. Okay. And then rec escape res, and we can do db dot. So let's say if we have to get a single book, like what do we need to do? Then understanding the put would be easy. So db dot get request dot params dot id, then we can go like take the book object and const book equals to book object dot value. Okay, getting the individual value, and we can take this part of the code saying that if not book, then return rest dot status of not found. But if there is a book, then rest dot send the book. Okay, and since we are doing a dot then here, we should also do a dot catch here, saying that if there is a error which is something very weird, then at that time you should do rest dot status of 500 dot send, uh, and we can kind of do like copy paste this error retrieving the book, saying that like the book that you requested could not be found. So if I go here, take this thing, create a new get request. Okay, so this is a get request, and 1323 says book not found. But if I do just one, it returns me this particular ID, title, and author. If I do two, that should return me the second one. 3 should return me the third one. 4 should return me the fourth one. Echo should return book not found. So if you understand this part where we are getting a single book, now this will make it easy to understand the put. So let's say I go for /2. Oh, it crashed because there's this is incomplete. uh, so if I go for this 2, there is no book called as Sherlock Holmes 2. Okay, there's this book does not exist. So I want to update the name, the title of this particular book. So what can we do here? Like that is why we are writing the put request, that for this particular ID, for ID 2, I want to update the title of the book to from Sherlock Holmes 2 to Sherlock Holmes. And I also want to update the author name, which we will see. Okay, so what, that is why we are writing the put request. So first we took whatever the slash number the user had given, then we searched if that actually book exists. If that exists, if that does not exist, then we return this error. If it exists, then we are doing the next bit, which is saying that uh, the book title, so book has a title, so the book dot title should be whatever the request dot body dot title is, or it should remain, if like if the user only wants to update the author, okay, then the book title should remain whatever it was before. And similarly, if the user only wants to update title, the book author should remain whatever it was. If the user wants to update author, the book title should remain what it was. And if the user wants to update both, then both of them should get updated, is what this whole line means. And here instead of title it should be author, and here it should be author. So book dot author should get updated if the user is updating it, or it should remain whatever it was before. Once that is done, then we can do something like return db.set set on the particular ID. So request.params.id, take the book that has been now updated. Okay, take the new book object, and then you can do a dot then and say that, let's say console.log updated book and comma book, you could do, or you could actually do something like this. So I'm adding a curly brackets, and then I am going to say that for this particular request.params.id, this is the book that was updated, and then we can do res dot send the updated book. So what was updated, we want to show it to the user that hey, this is what you updated. So let me format this. And where are we using the dot then? It's here. So the dot catch will come somewhere here, not somewhere here, here exactly. So dot catch error. So this is to catch any error which we have not covered. So rest dot status of 500, and then dot send the error. It will not be error retrieving the book, it would be error updating the book. Okay, formatting this again. So now if I go over here, go to our put request, and I go like 1323, that should fail. If I go to 1, there is no change. Okay, 1, sorry, the 2. Okay, it's still called Sherlock Holmes 2 and or Arthur Conan Doyle. But if I go to the body and if I change it one by one, okay, so let me first change the title to the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so it was Sherlock Holmes 2. I want to change the title to The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The author still remains Arthur Conan Doyle, and I send, and you can see that the 2 has been updated. It's here. And now I want to change the author as well. Okay, so if I want to change the author, it should now be Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and let's send that, and that's updated. Okay, so if I go to our all books, if you remember, getting all the books, which should be somewhere, I'm going to close this. No, cancel. Yeah, this is our all books part, right? Yep. So if I do this, I should now have 4 books, where the second one is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Okay, so I hope you understand what we are doing here. We have updated a single book, and we have updated, uh, created, getting all the books, getting single book, updating a single book. Let's add 2 more, which is deleting individual book. Okay, deleting individual book and clearing the database, which is basically saying that deleting all the books. Also, let me see the time. So we have approximately 5 minutes left, which should be good enough. So app dot delete, and we will say that slash API slash books slash colon ID rec rec comma res. Okay, db dot get request dot params dot id dot then the book object. Then we will, once we have that book object, we need to first find the particular book to delete, right? So const book equals to book object dot value. Formatting this, and let me move up a bit. So okay, so if first, let's say if there's not the book, which is what I'm going to copy from here. So if let's say you want to delete the book 6 or 7, which does not exist, then we should basically tell the user that hey, the book that you're trying to delete does not exist. So if not book, then you do this, or else you can do db dot delete, and you need to give it the id. So rec dot params dot id, then you can do a dot then, and there would be no variable here. All we need to do is rest dot status of 204 dot send. So what is 204 status? Well, it's not I am a teapot. 204 is a successful thing. Why did it go there? Yeah. And it means that there is no content. Okay, so it means that so why are we going to send a 204? A 204 is that you have successfully deleted the book, but well, if you have deleted a book, I cannot return back an object of that book, right? So that is why we are not going to send any response. We are just going to say rest.status 204. If it's 204, the user will understand that, oh, successfully deleted or something, and that's it. So, and let's do a dot catch here, uh, catch any error, and we can do, I'm going to copy this, format it, and instead of error updating the book, it should be error deleting the book. So this is to delete a single book. So now let's go back to our hopscotch, and I want to delete the book number 4 because it is repeated here. Okay, so let me create a new request. I am going to copy this whole thing. This should be a delete request, and I want to delete the book number 4. And let's do a send on this 204. There's no response as such, but now if I go to my all books and I do a send, it should be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so the 4 is not here because we have successfully deleted the fourth book. So we can delete individual book. And finally, to delete all the books, I can do something like app.delete, uh, and it could be on slash API slash delete all, delete dash DB. Okay, so this has a special name as such because this is a very risky operation, and I hate that it's auto completing now. So rec.res and db.list. Actually, I don't think we'll be able to complete this. So for now, let's actually take a pause here. What have we done till now? We have created our server that we are supposed to deploy tomorrow. We have created, I don't think this is required. Yep, we have created our server that we are supposed to deploy. We have tested our APIs to see that they work. And that's actually it for today. Tomorrow, once you join, let me come back on screen. Okay, now, yeah, this is better. So tomorrow when you all join, what are we going to do? We are going to probably, like not probably, we are actually going to first finish completing the front end, which should be quick enough. I will have some pre-written code, which I'll just explain so that we don't waste time there. Uh, so we'll have some pre-written code which I will just update a few things here and there, some few variables or uh, very tiny pieces. So we are done in like half an hour. The next uh, 2 or 3.5 hours will be kind of spent on deployment, on where to deploy, how to deploy, Docker containers, and all those things. Okay, so yeah, that is it for today. Any questions? True. Nice. Uh, okay. Any questions, anyone, before we end this session? I don't want you to be late for the next one. That is why. Okay. I take the silence as golden. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And I will see you again tomorrow. Okay. All the best for your next session. You'll have like 5 minutes of break, I guess, before the next session, which I'm not sure which is the next session that will come on. Oh, you have a session after an hour, I think. Yeah, after an hour. So you have like an hour time left in between for your break. But I think that's good enough. Okay? Like, taking a break is nice. Where can we rewatch the session? You can watch it on YouTube actually. All our sessions, all the GHW sessions, my previous sessions, everyone's previous sessions are actually available on Major League Hacking YouTube. So I am going to share the link to all the streams. Yes, yes, perfect. So Emulate YouTube channel has all the past streams. So let's say you want to watch a stream of the AI ML week that had previously happened, like last month. It's available on YouTube, or any other sessions that are going to happen in this whole MLH GHW. So in the whole cloud week, all the sessions are on YouTube. Yes, you can rewatch still there. And yeah, that's it from me. Thank you so much everyone for joining, and I will see you tomorrow. Cheers. Bye bye.